Hey, it's Clay. Welcome to another video. It's going to be a golf swing analysis for Big Pharma, submitted to the golf subreddit. So he's been at it for about a year and is looking for some general help. We had a chance to go through your swing, and I think this is another example of some early extension pattern. And by that, I'm talking about the relationship between your spine. So I'm attempting to kind of locate the spine there and how it moves and changes throughout the swing. If we go ahead and watch. So far, you're quite good. And then I think in here, you can see when we get in towards impact, your spine angle has changed a fair amount. Kind of more in this position. And you can notice how your tushes really come off that starting line. We could also potentially draw a line here on your head and track that. Yeah, so you're much more straight up and down, which is pretty common for early extension. So there's a video from George Gankis, which I'll link in the description below, where he talks about posture, and I think that you're a pretty prime candidate for some of that analysis. And by that I mean I'm talking kind of about the positioning of this part of the body right here. And you look like you're maybe a pretty tall guy, and it looks like kind of a short iron, so I understand you probably have to bend over a fair amount to get to the ball. And I understand that. I guess one thought I would have is make sure your clubs are fitted for you, and not just talking about longer shafts, but upright and maybe longer if that's needed. Just something to think about. But then what I'm really talking about is this position right here of the lower back. You can actually see that you've got a little bit of flex here in the lower back. And George's theory, and I tend to agree with it, is talking about the pelvis. Okay, so kind of similar to last video. If you have your two femur bones, right? This is your right femur, your left femur, and you got your spine. The pelvis is this bone in between that connects everything. And the angle of the pelvis upon which it rotates is pretty important. I've got another video on my channel talking more in depth about that if you still have questions after this, but the idea is that you can rotate your pelvis. And on one extreme, you have what is called anterior pelvic rotation. And that means that's kind of what you're displaying here. We've got this flex here in the lower back, meaning you are tilting your pelvis to point down. Okay, it would kind of be like if you've ever played other sports, if you played basketball, like a defensive ready position is very much anterior pelvic rotation. If you've ever played baseball, a shortstop ready to field the ball, you kind of are in a very, your legs are ready to react. And in doing so, you want to have some of that anterior pelvic rotation so you can spring into action. The other side of it would be called posterior pelvic rotation, and that would be kind of as if you were to take your pelvis and try to move it this way. And early extension is often referred to as goat humping, and so the idea there is that you are actually performing the humping motion with your hips. And so if you move in a posterior fashion, you'll actually be rotating up. So your belt buckle will be pointing more up. And then your butt will, this part of your back, instead of being kind of like this, it'll flip and go like this. And then your butt will actually come under your body a little bit more. And it kind of feels or looks like an old man, an old man shuffle. That is very much a posterior rotated pelvis. Okay? What George says and what I tend to agree with, and from my own observations and experiments with my own early extension, is that by starting as you are with anterior rotation, you get up to the top, and then you really have nowhere to go. Then right here, you can see how your hip and your pelvis really starts to move kind of from this position to more of this, moving up that way. And even right here, I think you can really see how you've kind of raised up the direction of your pelvis. Okay? And that's kind of golf swing is almost like a physics problem where you have equal and opposite reaction. So if you start with too much anterior, then you get to the top and you got nowhere to go but posterior. So something to experiment with would be to feel as if at setup you set up like an old man. And what I'm coaching you to do is very much an exaggeration. So like you're going to have to really press your hips forward and tuck your butt under so that you are really emphasizing this position of feeling like an old man. Okay? Then as you swing back, you get to about here when you start to crunch down. This is perfect, by the way. You know, as you're getting to this position, I'm watching that your hips will start to go down. That's good. You should be, your kinematic sequencing is very good here. What you want to do at this position, when you start with the old man, the posterior, you want to start moving into anterior right here. So instead of being like this, where you are, watch this part of your back right in here. You notice how you're flat and you go round, 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 round. You want to flip that around. So you want to be rounded here, and then you want to drive the pelvis down. So if you would be here, you want to drive it down. Okay? And what that will feel like is that there's a lot of strain or kind of a lot of pressure in your lower back as you're keeping this part very straight. Okay? Because if your pelvis is rotated anterior, it is impossible for you to round the shoulders like this. So rotate the pelvis down and try to maintain that until about here, and then it's perfectly okay to allow it to go to rotate up again and extend. The idea is that it's early extension. You're extending too early. You're rotating your pelvis up too early. So think opposite. Start, butt tucked under, old man posture. Then as you transition here, go into that shortstop, defensive ready, pelvis pointed down, lower back flexed, and make your downswing. And then after contact, allow it to extend up again to a relaxed and full finish. Okay? Let me know how this works. This is kind of a second part. I've had 2 of these this morning, and I'm curious to know. This is just a theory on my end that I'm working through. There are a lot of people that talk about early extension, and I'm not hearing a lot of discussion of focusing on the movement of the pelvis. So as a kind of an extreme feel, give that a shot, and please let me know your thoughts down below. Appreciate you guys tuning in. I'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.